Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I'm your guide and host through the show. Today, once again, is our monthly series, Learn with a Lender with Joel Schaub from Guaranteed Rate. Now, Joel is the vice president of lending at Guaranteed Rate, and he's been doing loans at a high level since 2003. And he's got to that level because of what he does specifically for agents, which is he gives back part of his commission to the buyer on every transaction. Now, last year alone, Joel gave back almost $300,000 in closing costs to buyers who worked with him, and that puts Joel's volume in the top 1/10 of 1% of all lenders nationwide. In fact, out of 400,000 loan officers in the country, Joel's ranked number 137. Now, last year, he closed 619 transactions, his highest amount ever for 1 year, for almost $250 million. And already this year, Joel has closed 262 transactions for $106 million. Now, if you're looking for a loan officer, we cannot more highly recommend Joel. He's the very best we've ever worked with. P.S. I've worked with him too, and I say the same thing. Joel can be reached, by the way. Here's his email address, joel@rate.com, JOEL@rate.com, or you can shoot him a text message or call him at 773-654-2049. Both of those ways to contact him are in our show notes. So you don't have to write that down. Just go to our show notes and you can click and call or email there. Now let's say hello to the biggest Cubs fan I know, Joel Schaub. Welcome, Joel.
Hey, DJ, thanks so much for having me. It's crazy when you hear those numbers, but it's always so good to come on here and give back and actually share the insights that I've gotten from other real estate agents who call me. And every single time we do it, we really have a blast.
We do, and we should start out by saying just yesterday, the news that was being seen all over television and print and online was, of course, that the Fed raised rates again 75 basis points, so 0.75%. And I know that, when I first saw that, I thought, oh, what does that mean? Meaning, how does that affect me personally? How does it affect the real estate industry? How does it affect, anything related to housing? And so I am excited to sort of make sense of what that means and what agents can do with that information to help keep their business rolling.
Well, I'll break it down into two easy sentences that you can have if you're an agent when you're talking to buyers, because agents really come to me and they go, how do I explain this, right? And so by the time this is happening, we're getting ready for another federal rate increase of short-term rates, okay? But let's stick with what happened yesterday, where we had a well-choreographed increase of 75 basis points to the short term. And what that meant was it was already baked into mortgage rates. So people ask me all the time, how did mortgage rates not go up on a day where the Fed just raised rates 75 basis points? And as an agent, you can explain it to borrowers pretty easily. The Federal Reserve meets every 6 weeks, but the bond market reacts every single day and sometimes hourly, right? So the Federal Reserve increase was already baked into rates. We saw them go up before. So this announcement was already in the cards.
Yeah, I think one thing that's a way to explain that for agents is to realize that these banks, these lenders, hire economists who are tracking what the Fed is telegraphing through some of their meetings. I know the 75 basis point height increase was absolutely expected. All the news outlets were talking about it days before it even happened. And of course, companies that live and die on rates, which of course are lenders, this is their whole entire existence, is making sure they're aware of this. So the good news is, as from what I understand you saying, is rates really didn't move very much as of yesterday because of the announcement.
And then by the time that we're listening, we're already getting ready for the next federal rate increase. And so what we're going to see is pretty well choreographed another 75 basis points, hopefully followed by a 50 and then a 25. So from here, we're going to see another 150 basis points of increases. So they're not done yet. And what that means is there's still going to be a little bit more pain in terms of mortgage rates, which right now are already over 6.5%. But as soon as the Federal Reserve indicates that they have completed the rounds of increases, The big mistake and the big myth that's wrong, and I'll tell you as agents right now, we don't need the Federal Reserve to cut rates for mortgage rates to drop. Okay, I'll say
Mm.
it again. We're not waiting down the line for Federal Reserves to cut the rates. As soon as next year happens and they decide that they're done with the rate increases, mortgage rates are going to come down. Okay. And they're going to come down sharply. Okay. They don't know how long it's going to take. So I talk about it being next year. And that's really what the economists think, is that they will have this under control. But the Federal Reserve might not cut interest rates for 2 years, 2.5 years. So we'll see exactly what happens. But as soon as they're done with the increases, DJ, we know that anybody who's buying today can refinance that mortgage. All right. So we go back to that fun phrase, right? We're going to marry the home and date the rate.
Yeah, and so this idea, and that is such a great phrase. I kept seeing this phrase over and over again in the articles yesterday. You know, you marry the home, you date the rate. It is such a great and perfect. I remember back in the days where there were even interest only loans, which I'm sure maybe they still exist to some capacity these days, but they were very prominent, as you remember, back in the early 2000s.
Yes.
And people would, that was part of the pitch, was like, hey, as rates move, you know, you can obviously refinance, and that's something. And also I'm thinking as an agent, you know, if I'm thinking there's going to be more rate increases coming, which you know, you seem to suggest is happening, that you're hearing, another great reason to reach out to the buyers and say, hey, you know, rate increases aren't over yet. And if you are, you know, thinking about making a purchasing decision, it might actually be a good idea to get in sooner rather than later. Not to use that as a scare tactic, but just to explain, here's where our economists think rates are headed. And if we can get in sooner, boy, that might actually help us. Plus, a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines. Oh yeah, and when rates stabilize, we can always refinance down the road. And you know, and you're might be not paying a premium for the homes that you would have paid a premium for back when rates were in, you know, much lower.
I'll tell you a story. I'm glad you said that, by the way, DJ. Last week, I had several clients that knew that the federal increases were coming, right? And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to secure a rate even though they did not have a property. So I went down and I had probably 5 or 6 different clients that will buy sometime in the next couple of months. And what we're able to do is do a rate lock before the increase and make sure that their rate was locked in for 90 days. And what that allowed them to do was not so much with this increase, because it was just last week, but it's going to insulate them over the next couple of months so that when the next increases come, they still have a rate that was as of last week. And what does that mean for an agent if you're listening? Reach out to your lenders that you're working with and ask them to do the same thing for any buyers that you have. Now you have a buyer that's locked into a rate, and as they go up, think of how much they're going to be calling you to actually go out on showings. They have a rate. They're going to have FOMO, DJ. They're going to have a fear of missing out, that if I don't find a home and go under contract, I'm going to lose the rate that I have locked in. Okay. So banks have different names for this. Contact your mortgage advisor that you work with closely. Our company calls it lock and roll, similar to rock and roll, where you can lock a rate and roll. Go out and find a home over the next 75 to 90 days. And this is one of the big advantages as an agent, would be working with somebody that can do that for you. And just think of the power there, right, DJ? You see how this could be an advantage for agents?
I see it as a huge advantage. I think it was much harder trying to get deals closed when rates were, you know, much lower. I think because we had more buyers, we had less, you know, less inventory, we had more competition. All I heard was agents stressed out during that time period. Yes, deals got done at a record number, but boy, it seemed like a pretty stressful time to be a practicing agent. All of our listeners can probably remember. So even though you might have done more deals, you know, back then, remember what the amount of stress, remember how many offers you were submitting, remember how hard it was to get in touch with the other realtor. It's actually much easier now. Yes, the hurdle is you have to educate your clients, but that's your job, right? The job is to educate your clients. So think about this, whereas I see realtors, well, Joel does too. Every single day, we have a lot here at our company. Joel works with hundreds and hundreds of agents, and he also sees this as a lot of people are kind of depressed right now. It's agents, meaning they're going, oh gosh, it's just harder
DJ, it's
rates.
everybody, right? It just seems
Everybody.
to be that way, but There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I know you're going to say
Totally.
this.
Well, the opportunity is always still there. And in fact, every successful, not every, a lot of successful business owners that I know say it's in these times of challenge that the real opportunities are born, because a lot of people just kind of, fall apart. And now, as you were telling me before we started, that you've put the gas on about doing more events, where now you have time to do more events, which is kind of nice. And you can actually put more into marketing, so that when things do stabilize, you're going to reap the benefits of that as a loan officer. Agents could do the same thing. Now's the time to do client appreciation events. Different maybe volunteer stuff. You could do volunteer events with your sphere. Even so, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, do a volunteer event, bring your sphere. There's lots of things you can do right now as an agent to be proactive.
Right now, I fully agree with you in the sense that it seems slower. Me personally, as the volume has dropped to about 10 to 12 million dollars a month, when a year ago we were doing much, much more than that. The difference here of doing 10 to 12 million dollars on a monthly basis is that it's so much easier for buyers to get an offer accepted. Okay. So when I'm submitting an offer, now we're really talking about how much under the asking price we can get. Whereas almost 6 months ago, DJ, we were still saying, I'm going to submit an offer at full price and probably lose.
Yeah,
So there's
full
definitely a
price.
mindset
Yeah.
here that you can definitely take advantage if you're a buyer, if you can take some time and find the right place. As these rates stay high and maybe go even higher, there's going to be sellers where they're just going to take a deal on a home to get it off the books. And if I'm an agent, I'm touching base with all of the people that are renting at a pretty high level. They can afford a certain dollar amount per rent, they can get out there and buy. And let's go make sure that they know there's an opportunity coming up for sellers that will be selling under asking price.
Absolutely. I think now is the time to educate customers educate your sphere of influence. Tell them what the reality of it is with this rate increase, and don't take your foot off the gas with respect to staying in touch. Now is the best time probably to reach out, because if your clients or your sphere are watching the news and they're like, uh-oh, the sky is falling, you get the opportunity to reset that expectation and provide value. And that's really, I think, what separates, you know, whether it's a loan officer or realtor, from the very, very cream of the crop, the people that do the most business. They are proactive. They reach out. They're not afraid to share the truth. And also it helps them reset expectations. And everybody in life, I don't know, I always have these fantasies that, like, I'll start getting phone calls from my service providers, accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, going, I have an idea for you. And you know what? I get very few of those phone calls. And I
Right.
think I would love it in my life if somebody were to call me once in a while and go, I have an idea for you. And this is what agents can do, is partner with loan officers, find out what the real story is, and then be able to share that with your customers, so they're not sitting at home freaking out.
Agents right now can go out and talk to buyers, and it's the same thing that, why are people afraid to buy something when it's on sale, right? I
Right.
talk about sports teams. When the team is really hot, everyone wants to go to the games and they're willing to overpay. Now that the team is not so good, we can go get really good seats and get a discount and still have the same show, right? So when Hamilton was in town and it was really expensive to get Hamilton tickets, once it was lower priced, did they give a half a performance? Was
Right.
it not the same show? And I know it doesn't equate exactly the same, and people say, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," but it's true. Like, I like buying my suits on sale. I like buying shoes on sale. So I'm telling buyers, let's go buy some real estate on sale. And when rates drop, you can refinance the debt, but you can never refinance if you overpaid by 40 grand.
Yeah, and you can now show with data through the MLS or whatever data systems you might be using. You can actually show how price of values falling, and so it allows the person to maybe make up that difference where they might feel the rate isn't exactly where they want it to be, but that home price might be exactly where they need it to be. And that wasn't the case a year, 2 years ago. It was, those home prices were like, oh my goodness, that was actually in my mind, those were bigger hurdles to jump. I actually think the rate hurdle hurdle is not as big of a hurdle, but realtors need to sort of reset their own expectations and realize there's always opportunity, but it's harder to sell a stock when it's undervalued versus when it's overvalued, right? So it is hard, but that's your job, is to reset your customers' expectations, buy things on sale. Rates are still reasonable, although uncomfortable for some people, but they're still very reasonable in my opinion. And I think if you're able to have those conversations and then go, hey, we're going to have a refinance opportunity shortly anyway, then I think you should be able to proceed as normal.
An agent was telling me this story last week, DJ, and they were telling me how they were overcoming objections from a buyer, several buyers. A lot of times the objection came in that I'm going to wait until rates come down to buy a property, right? I think I'm going to wait. I don't want to buy right now while rates are up. I want to buy when these rates come crashing back down. And instead of putting up a big objection, the agent agreed. They said, you're right. I think rates are going to come down in the future too. So let me paint the picture of what that looks like if you bought then. And the agent went on to describe the scenario in which if someday happens where rates plummet, what are we going to see? A bunch of buyers rush back out into the market. Then he said, let's talk about a scenario in which we bought right now and got a deal on the home. You owned the property. And then when rates drop, you don't have to rush and do anything. You can call your mortgage professional, refinance down to the rates that you think they're going to be. And we bought the place under value, and then we refinanced the debt in the future. That client went under contract a couple of days later after them doing that. So you control the narrative and really talk from, speak from the heart.
I absolutely agree. And I think part of it is just the reluctance to reach out with tough news. And I think for all of our listeners, if you can be the proactive person that reaches out when there's tough news to your sphere, you are so incredibly valuable to that sphere. They're not going to choose anybody else. And so I love the fact that you come on every month and share with us. And it's not always wine and roses. Sometimes it's tough news, but you're willing to share and you're willing to say, even though things have changed, here's how to talk about it. I mean, you're doing the same thing that realtors could be doing here on this podcast. I know you do it with your customers and the agents you work with as well. We should actually mention that you still partner with agents. And if there are agents who are listening, who are looking for partnership opportunities, maybe sponsoring events, maybe co-branding certain flyers, brochures, loan officers can help with that, especially right now. So if anyone out there, Joel, is wanting to partner with you, whether they're an agent or maybe they're a buyer or seller who found our podcast or listening to you and say, I would love to have a loan officer for my own property that has this much information, what's the best way someone should reach out?
No, I'm happy to do that, and we could set up a conversation. And just the easiest way would be there's an email address where I would send you the lender introduction template, where if you did have a buyer and you wanted to refer them over to us, we would waive the fees on the lending side and really partner with you. And so it's just joel@rate.com. And I know I mentioned this probably 2 or 3 segments ago, and I've had literally hundreds of agents across the United States where I've had email conversations, long phone calls. I've talked to so many people in so many different markets, and whether we do business or not, they're like, wow, you actually answered. Wow, you're replying. And they think there's like 5 or 6 of me. And sometimes, DJ, I think there might be 5 or 6 of me. But there's an opportunity out there, whether it is me or a local lender that you really like. If you're doing business, you're valuable. Okay. So you make sure you get something from the lenders that are all reaching out asking for business. So one of the things that we do is give back in that way. And then the second thing is you can even email us asking for the weekly market update. The market update, DJ, you've seen this before. Tell everybody.
I love it. So every week, Joel's team sends out a how to make sense of what's going on in the lending world in very short, an email, very short, bite-sized, digestible, easy to basically sound bites that you can then just take and use with your own clients. Like for example, I'll go to the big mortgage website. If a news website is called Mortgage News Daily, and they just aggregate tons of stuff. And I oftentimes, as I read through Mortgage News Daily stuff, I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. It's very complicated. And your team will actually take a lot of the data that's out there and make it really digestible and easy to read in a short email format with graphs and information. And then you can take that directly to your clients.
It just makes you sound better. And that's what we're about, is getting information and making sure that you understand enough, and then be able to actually explain a few things to buyers so that, wow, that email really helped from Joel.
Yeah. So if they want to join your email list, which everyone should, there's obviously no cost for it. And Joel and his team would be happy to share that with you. Should they just email joel@rate.com?
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. We can add them directly to the list. So it's Joel, Joel, at rate.com. And so that'll apply to the weekly newsletter. And then as for partnerships, you can absolutely ask for the lender introduction template. It's already written out the way that you can introduce potential buyers, and we can start working together. And we really will. Anybody that reaches out, we will absolutely partner with you and help you on your next transaction, and get the lender fees waived in full and make you look good. Really help you grow the business to the next level.
Well, I love it. I hope all of our listeners consider reaching out. At the very least, please subscribe to his newsletter. I promise you, it's amazing, and it'll help you be a better realtor because you'll have more information, and you don't have to read 10 different articles to get this information. They do the hard work for you, so you can just sit back and let it hit your inbox, and then you can. If I were an agent, I would take what you send every week and I would call a certain number of people in my database every single day for that next week, going, hey, I have a couple bits of news for you. Just wanted to keep you up to date on what's going on. You could even leave it on someone's voicemail. Really, it doesn't have to even be, you don't have to get them on the phone. And boy, can you imagine? I don't get those kind of voicemails. I don't know about you with different service providers in your life, but boy, I'd love to get messages like that. So I imagine your clients, everyone's clients here would as well, or sphere of influence. And you can really provide value versus just going, hey, you want to buy or sell something right now? Which of course you can do too, but you can only ask that so many times before your friends stop answering the phone, right? So if you call with purpose, I call it marketing with purpose. This is obviously Joel's team can provide you the purpose and the reason to reach out. So everyone subscribe to his newsletter. Just email joel@rate.com, ask to be placed on it. They'll do that. And then of course you can reach out to him for any and all opportunities to work together too. Well, Joel, what a great way to sort of talk about what's happening right now. We appreciate it. I was even scared because I'm seeing all this news about the rates, and even though I know that it shouldn't necessarily affect our business directly, I was freaking out yesterday, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know enough to not freak out. So if I'm freaking out, your clients are probably freaking out too. Great opportunity to reach out, calm the waters, and then you can provide some value. So anyway, Joel, thank you for helping calm my waters, and also for helping provide so much value here on this show. You've done it month after month and year over year, and you have shown up every single month for years now, and that is really impeccable, remarkable, and probably no secret to the reason why you're so successful. So everyone out there, discipline and consistency and value. If you just focus on those three things, you're going to be successful and you're going to get through this. Sky is not falling, and stay positive, right? All right, Joel. Well, thank you for keeping me positive, keeping us positive, and keeping our show full of value. So on behalf of the listeners, thank you. And on behalf of Joel and myself, we thank the listeners, the viewers. You're the reason this show, we just surpassed 2 million downloads, I think, in the last week or so. We are so grateful to everyone who listens. And so please tell a friend. Let's help us keep growing. Just talk to one other person about the show, send them a link. We would really appreciate it. And that's all we ask. Joel, thank you so much. We will see everybody on the next show.